So I just want to get that. I mean, yeah, it's just. So for sure, remaining at 0. Yes, I would. Yeah. It's not, it's totally. Yeah, it's I did that transition.
All right, we'll go ahead and start. I don't want you to feel like you hurried back from lunch and now we're waiting on Jennifer. Whoever wound up going to a very nice restaurant, they trickle back in as we go along. Which is fine, it is Columbia, we know how it tends to kind of operate. Before we went to lunch, I had mentioned that we have several veterans in the room. And so I was able to kind of inquire about, is there anything that you can think of that would help new people in these positions, that I have not said. So I want to open the floor for the next few minutes. If you are a vet, there is something that you feel like you want to talk about that would help somebody in this new role, I would very much appreciate you sharing, and I'm sure they would as well. So if it's directed to something in gyms, if you're sharing, if you can kind of direct, like, go and link so-and-so, I want to bring this to your knowledge, or whatever it is, I'm going to open the floor for that. If there's something you can think of that you would like to share. Anybody before I call it?
Jennifer, one of the things.
Hold on, you were in the back.
Also, I'm not. Jennifer Sahante, my name's Sydney Sling. I've been the director of federal and state programs in Berkeley County for 24 years now. A couple of the things that I connected with that Jennifer said, and I assured her, we do not come as veterans because we think she's holding anything back or not telling us something. We have that educator mindset of we're always learning, we're always getting better. There is something I do different and have done different every year of this job, and I hope I don't ever stop doing that to you, stop letting me come. But a couple of the things that I connected with is when Jennifer was talking about the rank order page in the application and collating your numbers for whether you're using People's in Poverty or your free and reduced lunch data and those things. Take that and download that into an Excel spreadsheet or a Google sheet, because you're going to play with that for weeks before you're ever ready to put those numbers in gyms. It's a pie, and depending on how many schools you're serving, depending on how many students you happen to have changed, or one of your data points changed tremendously, you have to cut that pie, and you have to trim that pie, and you have to go back and cut that pie about 5 different times sometimes. So play with it in Excel first. In our district, we use the People's in Poverty count. We don't use free and reduced lunch applications. And we don't use a direct search application. And the reason why, we transitioned about 4 years ago. We had a new superintendent that came in. He had come from a district where they had quite a few community eligibility provisions. So they no longer took up free and reduced lunch applications. Every kid was free every meal. So I had 11 of those, and 35 that were still taking up free and reduced lunch application. So there's no common denominator. We ran the numbers both ways, took them to the superintendent and said, we really want to transition over to using the People's in Poverty count. The other thing that really worked for us is I, for years, had to stand up in front of principals and explain why your school gets to be Title I and your school isn't Title I, when you believe wholeheartedly you ought to be. And when I was using free and reduced lunch application numbers, that's unverified. We were taking the number every parent puts on an application, and sorry today, they might not all have been as on target as they should have been. And of course, we'll never question that. We're going to feed every kid we can feed. But when it is the People's in Poverty count, our power school, number one, I'm not playing with numbers and no one can say I am, so it's verifiable. But number two, it also gave us a really clear connection to get parents aligned with other services they need. So our schools did a really good job when we transitioned to when they have their open houses or they have their first parent meetings for Title I, bringing in those organizations and saying one of the ways that we are this is because you get services from these. And if you need services and you're not signed up with them, we're here to help you do that. So we felt like that was a real positive for our parents as well, but it is verifiable and you can't really argue with it as much. And then the other thing was we have done consolidated admin forms for years in our district now. As a young person, I didn't know what that was. And in our office, we handle all ESCA grants. And so there's not one of us that is purely, I do this and I don't touch that, especially when it's all hands on deck and we're all needed to do. If you want to keep a 15-minute log every 15 minutes of your day to explain what you do, that's great. We don't have time to do that either. And we do PARs, elbow over thumb every day for schools to make sure that adults in buildings do what they need to do for kids and we can document it correctly. So we use the consolidated admin form and the staff that is listed in the Title I plan. We prorate their time between Title I, Title II, Title III, and Title IV so that we can all legitimately work on all grants at the same time. And it works for us, and we're able to do that and get it turned in, and then we're not taking our time to work on time and effort documentation. So those are just really big things that I think make a difference in our grants. That Jennifer talked about, but it's hard to go into detail on a day like today.
Okay, another event? There's something that stuck out to you that you want to share? Y'all know you're good at what you do.
I am Pamela Rose, I'm the director of federal programs for Sumter School District. I have no way of veteran. I'm going into my third year in this position. But Jennifer is my cousin, so. I'm doing this because she's fat. I just want to touch on two things. One thing they mentioned earlier about reaching out to the state department personnel for assistance and support, and don't be afraid to do that because there has been this myth that if you reach out to them too many times, it looks bad, makes you look like you don't know what you're doing. That is definitely not the case at all. I have made not only personal, professional connections with the personnel at the State Department, but I also feel like I have a personal connection with them. And so whenever I have to call and get support, I don't feel any way about it because I know they're going to be there for me and my team to make sure we're doing things the right way and in decent order. The second thing is cross-training your team. That's why I have them here. We go to everything together. So pretty much when you see me, you're going to see them because we want to make sure that we're all speaking the same language because when we all got together, we pretty much all came into our department at around the same time. And so we saw very quickly that it was the thing of if mama said no, you go ask daddy. You know how that goes. And so we wanted to make sure that when that happened in our district, that we were speaking the same language and giving the same information. And so just make sure that your team is speaking the same language when it comes to anything, when it comes to your federal funds and how to implement those plans, as well as with the monitoring team as well. We got monitors too because I came on board, so that was the best way for me to learn my job. I had no choice but to learn my job very quickly and very intimately because of the monitoring visit that was coming up shortly after I came on board. Hopefully nobody else is in that position, but I will tell you if you are, that's one of the best things and craziest things for me. Because like I said, I learned so much getting ready for that monitoring visit because I had no choice but to learn it. So use that monitoring tool to also help you know exactly what to do and how to do it.
Thank you, Pam. Anybody else? Well, if you won't brag on you, I'm gonna brag on some of you. I told you earlier that for internal controls for reading grants, there is a two-level, approval process. So the program managers, they review, they read, and then when they approve, then I'm reading behind them. So it's two approvals. So you'll see a program manager approval and then a director approval within GEMS. It will continue to be that way even for N&D, although Lakeisha will be the state coordinator. Internal control is that there are two. And one thing I have learned over time from going to meetings like this with the U.S. Department of Ed is your district must have policies and procedures written so you can pull them. And internal controls need to be tight. So therefore, you don't have things that are called in audits. You don't have underhanded business going on. The left-hand knows what the right hand is doing. So those are just some things to keep in mind as you are coming on board. Ask questions. Say, can I see the policies and the procedures? When Lakeisha came on board, one of the very first things I handed her was, this is our strategic plan for the Office of Federal and State Accountability. You'll read the goals for my team and for the other teams. Here's the policies and the procedures manual. Start there. Then we'll move into specific job duties. You need to ask questions. Can I see this? Can I see that? Do we have this? Do we have that? As you are listening and learning, be willing to go back and ask questions. Earlier, Mr. Pat was here and he went into needs assessment. And so I will tell you that I'm the program manager for a few districts myself. Florence 1, raise your hand, ladies, over there. They have a very good needs assessment. So if you're coming on board and you want to see a pretty one, organized one, it looks good. Okay, so you can see those ladies at the end of the day as well. I also read Richland 1's plan. Theirs is good as well. So those are, I have some other districts as well, but I've read a couple of projects for 25 preliminary already. And so I can say, we're going to read this time. Some of the vets have done it so long that they tweaked it and it looks great. And so use the resources that you have. Ask people who are here today and tomorrow, do you have so-and-so that I can see? Can you guide me in this direction? Are you willing to share templates? Whatever it is that you hear that catches your attention, they're here for questions as well. Okay, we'll get back into the meat of it. I think it's better to teach these things through looking at GEMS so that it makes sense. In the past, I've gone through some of these slides without asking you to be in GEMS. But I think that concrete visual is a big help when you are new. So if you'll go back into GEMS, if you want to follow along, I will tell you where to look. If you cannot see your own district's plan, and you want to see a plan, you might ask the person beside you, can I look? I know I'm not from your district, but can I follow along? So that you can kind of see where this stuff is referenced within the actual application system. Okay, so we've talked about the district level funding. Now we're going to talk about the school-wide plans. What do I need to know about the funding that's being pushed out to the schools? So the last thing I will say about the district, the LEA set-asides link, is that page, that link is like a cover sheet. Okay, so if you put things in that cover sheet, as I call it, it is not going to link down into the budget for you. In a little while, we'll go into the budget link, and there's a place in the budget that you will choose LEA set-asides instead of Rhodes Elementary. Whatever you put on that cover sheet, you have to go down in the budget as well. Choose LEA set-asides, write out that, copy and paste over there again. Unlike Denise, you're working in some other platform, you have it in Word or Excel or whatever, you can copy and paste over into the budget. But just know that that page is a cover sheet. It's not going to link down into the budget folder. That may make sense more later when we go through jobs. There are two types of Title I programs that can be done for school-wide plans for serving the schools. Most of the districts in the state do school-wide plans. It offers flexibility. It allows you to serve every kid in the school. You're not having to pick a grade level or, a specific targeted group serving every child in that school. In my opinion, that is the easier, but there is an option of doing a targeted assistance. In the 25 grant, I think we will have one district that will do that, but most of it is school-wise. The very last bullet I have hit on multiple times, that here in the school-wide plan, it goes back to the need. As a new person, I'll go ahead and tell you, please don't just take the former year's grants, needs assessment, and change the date at the top and drop it into the new grant. Because the program managers are pulling it up. It's on one screen and the school-wide plan is on the other screen. They're going to catch that. I have caught that in the past. I understand that we are all busy, but this is built on the needs assessment. So if that foundation is done inaccurately, there's going to be problems that come along later on because it wasn't handled appropriately. So make sure you meet with the stakeholders, you figure out the needs of your kids, and you work appropriately that way. What does that look like, Jennifer? Okay. I'm reading a district's plan right now. And in 2 or 3 of the school-wides, they need behavior interventions. I'm fine with that. I bet you do, especially if you work at the middle school. I bet you do. I do. I understand what we're working with, okay? But do you have any kind of data to support that the money needs to be spent on that? Okay, if you do, drop some data in so I can kind of see, like, what are the discipline referrals looking like? Because the next year, I'm going to ask you to put some more in so that I can kind of data train to look to see, is your behavior interventionist making a difference? Or are they just getting a cute little paycheck and they're outside on the playground? You work at the school system, you know, right? I can even tell from my list. Are they doing it right? Because over 3 or 4 years, the data should indicate that their work is showing off, right? So on our level, not only are we reading the front end, but we're evaluating that return on investment. So yes, it's my job, but it's your job too, okay? If they're being paid with federal funds, is it best use of funds? Or do I need to purchase something else? Should I purchase PBIS? What should I do with the funding to better meet the need? So that's an example of kind of how that would operate. Okay. What are the components of the school-wide program? The needs assessment of the entire school, the school-wide plan itself, and an annual review of the Title I plan. So there it is. On our level, they asked us for the same thing. Hence, the N&D evaluation summary is due. We have to evaluate as well. You should be doing the same. Plan to look at the plan and see if it's making a difference. Okay. The comprehensive school-wide plan provides opportunities for all children, including each of the subgroups of the students, to meet the challenging state academic standards. What can we do to support these children towards their academics? Okay, that's what Title I is for. Title II, we'll talk about tomorrow. It has a very different purpose. Title IV is a different purpose. But one, how are we helping our children? The second one, use methods and instructional strategies that strengthen the academic program in the school. Increase the amount and quality of learning time and help provide an enriched and accelerated curriculum, which may include programs, activities, and courses necessary to provide a well-rounded education. That kind of gets into Title IV as well. You'll see a link between Title I and Title IV tomorrow. But what are we doing with the instructional programs? Are they meeting our needs? When I was working down near the beach, we purchased a program called Success for All. It's a reading program. We implemented with Fidelity. We began to see some growth. And so not only were we looking at it 1 year, and the next year, and the next year, but after that 3 years, you look at it and say, okay, does anything need to be tweaked or changed? Do we need to buy more resources for it? Do we need to step up the PD? How are we engaging the teachers? There are many, many aspects to that, like Mr. Pat talked about this morning. What are some of the things we might see in the school-wide plan? Counseling or mental health programs, preparation for and awareness of opportunities for post-secondary education in the workforce. Number 3, things that prevent or address problem behavior, early intervening services, PD, assistance for preschool children. So there are many things, and we'll go through the allowability as well. We have, if you are new, if you want to email your program manager or myself or look on the website, we have a document. It's called Allowable Use of Funds. And it's like a yes and no list for every grant. Title I is listed with all the things that are typically deemed allowable, and then the no-no side. So there is a guidance document for that we can give you. Key requirements. The second one I really like to focus on is what has been written in the plan necessary and reasonable. I want to focus on that one for a minute. When I read a plan, the district's plan, and I look at the amount that has been budgeted for that activity, I ask myself, is that a reasonable amount? You can do the same thing. Pretend that you know very little about education when you read the plan as a newbie. When you look at the budgeted amount for what's going on, step outside and say to yourself, is that reasonable? Is that amount reasonable? And if it's not, then you can ask questions. I will even ask questions if I think a salary is too high. And I know that in a lot of cases, it's like a district level decision. But when it comes to federal funding, I might ask you the question, I need to see the job duties for this amount of money, right? So necessary and reasonable. Is it reasonable? Okay. Here are a couple things to talk about at your table. How are activities determined? And how often do activities change? When we pull that together, I'm going to talk about the second bullet. How often do they change? So if you're sitting alone, you might want to move near somebody and go ahead and talk about these two for the next 5 minutes or so. How are activities determined? If you don't know yet, talk about how you think they're determined. All right, you can start to wrap up your last comments. Okay. For the brand new people, let me give you another note to write down for next year when you write the plan. And I know a lot of you are coming into it already written because it's due July 1 and new hires come in July, right? The next year you're going to be writing it. When I say this, some of you are going to be like, you got to be kidding me, Jim. The principals can write out the activities for what they need and submit it to you. You need to read it before you put it in James. If you hadn't read it, there's a problem. That's your main job. I'm telling you that because you're brand new. Read it and give them guidance. You need to be able to say, okay, you have budgeted $10,000 for field trips. Is that reasonable? And you need to have that conversation. Because if you don't, I am. Because when it makes it to my desk, the conversation is going to start with you. Why is this on my desk? Tell me how that's reasonable. And it's going to come to you in a comment. Please provide a justification as to why Rhodes Elementary has budgeted $10,000 for field trips when they've only got blank amount. I understand that children need to go somewhere, have experiences, but we're trying to move the academic need. You going to explain to the U.S. Department of Ed yourself when they come to you how we went down to the beach and we had a great day and it moved the needle. You can, I'm not for it. And I'm not going to approve it either unless it's tight. Okay? You gotta read it. I can tell if you haven't. And then in my mind, I'm like, okay, technical assistance needs to happen on my side. So then I say, Teresa, I need you to pause the review of Salter and call so-and-so. Okay? Read it. Have a conversation with them. You might say, you don't know my principles. I know what orange looks like. And I don't mean flips. This is federal funding. That's federal prison. I'm not going. I have 2 children. I'm not going. Okay? I know that sounds like simplistic and that's harsh. This job is harsh. You have stepped into a serious role. A serious role. The overseer of federal funds. Please understand that role. All the roles are important. But when I stepped into team lead position, I had to ask myself, I still ask myself. In fact, last week I went and said, I'm on year 23. Read it, send it back, be the bad guy in a nice manner. Love them into submission. Whatever you have to do, ask the hard questions. Okay, I wrote myself a note to talk about a specific thing, and it goes along with bullet 2. How often do activities change? Okay, so we talked about going out to talk to the principals and helping them know if they need to make revisions to their project. Jennifer, can they do that at any time during the year? Or can I kind of set the time frame as a federal programs person? How does that work? When you are a district the size of Charleston, Greenville County, I mean, when I read Richland 1, I think I'm never going to get done. Like, I think it's fine to say, if you need to revise, here's a window that works for me. So that you can look at your responsibilities and be able to assist as you can. But yes, they can amend as needed. It's about spending the money based on the needs of the kids. And if they wrote a plan, it is just a plan, right? They might need to revise the plan as they go along. Now, there are two hot spots, time periods during the year where we produce a cutoff and we say, okay, this is the GEMS amendment deadline. I think this year was like June 6th. My memory recalls me right. That means if an amendment is coming in after that, my girls don't have to look at it. It's going to sit until the window opens again. And so I make sure that I'm sending out mass communication. Most of the time, it's like 4 times. I contact them some kind of way, and I say, please be reminded of the GEMS amendment deadline. That means anything you need to revise needs to be into us by June the 6th, or whatever it is. And then there will be a GAPS amendment deadline to follow. They usually are about 2 weeks difference of each other. That means you've got GEMS done. Now you've got a window to go in and make GAPS match GEMS. The two systems should always match. The budget for GEMS should match the budget for GAPS. As you age, we will talk about one caveat to that in other trainings. Like in March, we will have an ESSA Academy. There, you'll be a little farther into the role. We'll talk about some things that are more in the weeds, like indirect costs and things like that. But for now, two systems should match. So the GAPS amendment deadline was like June the 16th, I think. This year, the deadline was like on Sunday. Y'all, I'm a pastor's wife. I'm at church. Common sense says, end of business on Friday. Like, I will say it, but it's common sense, right? Like, I'm not in the office. The women that look at it before me are not in the office, and I'm not going to ask them to. Now, Sarah Wakers helps me with GAPS. She is wonderful. Goes way beyond the call of duty. And she will look sometimes. But it's unfair, and it might not happen. So if a deadline falls on a Sunday, as a newbie, keep in mind that means Friday into business. Okay? What happens if we get into the next Tuesday, Wednesday, and we're still getting amendments and the district is asking me to help them? At that point, it affects the risk assessment for your district. Okay? So you're new, might not know what risk assessment is. You don't want to know. Goes to the superintendent, right? He gets looped in to like, what's going on? That we got deans, we got this and this and that. It starts affecting when deadlines are not met. So when the deadlines come out, in your role, what is your responsibility? You give the principals a due date that suits you so that you have time to meet our date, right? Here's y'all's date, so I can meet my date. Okay, that is very important. You will sit there and think that don't happen. Didn't I just tell you that people don't replan in the project? It happens. It happens. Things happen.
Jennifer, for us, that goes into deeper in the sense that I need to meet your deadline. And after you've looked at it and approved it, I then need to go into GAPS and make my adjustments there. And then I'm gonna wait on the finance office to approve GAPS. And after that, I'm gonna need to go into my district system and change the budgets there long before my finance director can make a claim on the grant. So if we're not backing ourselves up to allow for that work time in between, we've gotten, I can think of at least one time in my career where we got to a claim period and finance called and said, look, Jim's and gaps doesn't match and I don't know why. And we had to backtrack through a lot of people. So it's more than just whatever deadline y'all put on your website. We've got to consider who's going to drag their feet even inside our district to make sure that we're ready for a claim to happen.
Great word for the lines, right? Which brings me to another point. Sometimes, so gaps is kind of double-handed. I do some in our office, Sarah Wagers and I, but then the grants accounting office is the main one processing gaps. So if there are troubleshooting going on, you need time for troubleshooting to occur. And like, if you need to talk directly to me, if I'm in meetings and this and that, we have to schedule a time for that. So you have to take those kind of things into consideration also. Troubleshooting windows. What if I have a problem that Jennifer has to contact grants accounting to help me because she can't get that far in the weeds? You have to allow for time like that. Let me tell you this as well while I'm kind of talking about finance. When money is not expended and it is left on the table, I am not going to send it back to the Department of Ed because I don't want them to say South Carolina doesn't need as much funding as we allot. So I'm going to redistribute the funds back out based on a criteria. So tomorrow you will see the claiming criteria per grant, per quarter. And we have a criteria that will allow us to give your district more funds if you meet certain criteria when we get to that point. So when we give out additional funds, and that's what we call it, additional funds, and we put them in gyms and we put them in gaps, they have to be budgeted in gaps before the district can make a plan. So sometimes we'll get to deadlines and the district start emailing me, the finance office starts emailing me and saying, I can't make a claim, I can't make a claim, Jennifer, I can't make a claim. And I'll say, because the additional funds have not been budgeted, that's how the system is established. All the funds have to be budgeted before you can claim. So that's a hiccup that can sometimes happen. When you get extra money, you got to budget in both systems so that claiming can continue to occur. Okay. Back to school-wide claims. Allowable use of funds. What is okay to be in the plan, and how do we know that? How do I keep up with all the changing regs and mandates? Read the guidance. You can go on our website and you'll see many, many documents. As Jewel would say, it's like great for nighttime reading. There are many conferences that are offered. They're listed here by number 3. I feel like we do a good job at ESSA Academy. It's one that is put on by our whole office and everybody participates. That is in March. I love to go to the FIFA, that's in DC. Love to attend that. But you can read any guidance that comes out that we send. I'll try to keep you abreast of things as best I can as well. Okay, so when you're sitting with a principal's plan, here are things that you need to think about those costs. Are they necessary? Are they reasonable? Are they allocable? Do they conform to EDGAR? Do they meet the terms and conditions of the grant award? Jennifer, what is that? For a district to receive federal funding, we have to give out documents. They're called grant award notifications. And it will have many like grant complexities written out. So when the superintendent signs off, he understands, when I accept federal funding, this is all things I have to adhere to. These are all the assurances that I have to adhere to as a district if I'm going to receive these funds. Make sure that everything is consistent with state and local policies, adequately documented, supplemental, necessary and reasonable just keeps popping up. You might say, well, Jennifer, what is that? It's just how the word describes. Is it necessary? But was that DJ necessary? Or could we have done it without? Was that Carolyn strip necessary? That G-force was awesome. I bet it was. It wasn't necessary. Okay. Do your homework, as not everyone you talk to will have the right answer. Look at flexibility as what you want to do may not fit one grant program, but it may fit another program. So after tomorrow, you'll have knowledge of Title II, Title IV, and REAP. And it may be something that is a need in your district that can be picked up by a different grant, not just Title I. Remember that you have to keep your district's policies close at hand too. District policies can be more restrictive than Title I regarding allowability. So you've got to understand the policies of your district. You want to do stipends, things of that nature with the funding, your district should have a policy on how stipends are determined. What's the scale? How much can a stipend be? And we will ask for you to upload that information so that we can compare what we see in the grant to the district's policy as well. Questions to ponder. So as you start to read, you might want to pull these slides and ask these questions as you read through the plan. How does this expenditure directly support student achievement for at-risk students? Does this expenditure directly support meaningful PD? Tomorrow in Title II, we will talk about Title II cannot be a standalone one-day PD. It has to be sustainable. Like how many days can it be? 2, 3? It's not just a standalone in Title II. Is it meaningful? How does this expenditure increase the participation of parents in school activities? How does this expenditure foster continuous improvement? Okay. Have the activities been evaluated to modify or to discontinue? And this kind of looks like the allowable use of funds document that we have. There's like a left-hand column for the yes and a right-hand column for the no. Notice that on the no side, it says some field trips. The U.S. Department of Ed is real particular about field trips. So know that it is like a thing they're looking at currently. It's one of their hot spots. So if your district is wanting federal funds to allow field trips, we have a field trip form. You can have the principal to fill out. You can submit that to your program manager prior to turning in the grant. Program manager can tell you if they think it is reasonable enough to allow it or not. So you can get that from your program manager as well. Notice student incentives capped at 1% of the school allocation. So if you want to buy medals and ribbons and pencils and things of that nature, you can only spend up to 1% of the allocation on an incentive. And Title I funds the board accounts. I'm sorry. Canteen money, I'll have to do something with fun, little trinkets. We do like ribbons and medals and things of that And this is what a GAN looks like over on the right-hand side. This is the first page. And this is what will go to the superintendent from Secretary Gail Knight. And it describes which grant it is, which year. It has a lot of information on there for the finance department. So they need to get a copy of it as well. It tells them what the indirect cost rate is, tells them what the total is, and then the superintendent signs off. It also comes with a cover letter and some assurances that the superintendent needs to read and understand what the district is signing on to when they take federal funds. This is what page 2 looks like. It gives you an example. I will tell you that some disagree with me and say that's not the case, but the superintendent is the only one that can sign the grant. So sometimes finance office, somebody will sign in proxy of that person, and then I have to return it and say, I need a superintendent's signature. Documentation. This is Greg's world. This is for the monitoring and auditing piece. You have to keep up with your documentation. LEAs must keep records to show compliance with the program requirements, the amount of funds, how the funds were used, the total cost of the project activity, and other records to facilitate an effective audit. Now, sometimes we ask you to go ahead and front load things. So when you get into GIMS and you see like a related document section, the person that had the role before you may have put in a lot of documentation. That is great, because that means the monitoring team can assess a whole lot. They can go ahead and have access to that before they have to ask for it. So a lot is put into the related document section of GIMS. This just gives you some information on how you can find policy updates, some reading that you can use at your own desk. If you click into those links, it will pull those things for you as a resource. All right, now I need to take a break. I will give you a few minutes to take a restroom break. I can get something to drink, and then we'll come back together and talk about supplement, not supplement.
Question about if the Supreme Court decision of the Chevron decision impact Edgar at all? You know, have you heard anything from the USDOE on that? Okay.
Can you do 5 minutes? Use the restroom? We'll come back.